The glass greenhouse stood like a shining jewel at the edge of the colony. Its wide curved walls caught the light of the twin suns, and every surface seemed alive with reflections. Inside, it was warm and quiet. Green leaves stretched toward the ceiling, and the air carried the soft scent of soil, flowers, and morning mist. It was a place that always felt alive, and it was Myra's favorite place in the world. Myra worked as a caretaker of the greenhouse. She was not a scientist or explorer, just someone who loved plants and understood their quiet needs. Every day she checked the soil, brushed dust from broad leaves, and whispered small words of comfort to the flowers. To her, the greenhouse was not only work but also home. She often thought the plants listened when she spoke, even if they could not answer. One morning, while Myra was watering a row of silver leaf vines, she heard an unfamiliar sound. It was not the hum of machines or the drip of water but a soft, low tone like music carried on the air. She froze and looked between the tall stalks. Through the hanging vines, she saw someone standing near the rare orchid section. It was not another human. The figure was tall and slender, with smooth pale skin that shimmered faintly under the glass roof. His eyes were large and calm, glowing faintly like the sky just before dusk. His clothes looked simple but carried strange patterns, woven with threads that caught the light. He was gently touching the stem of a rare bloom as if it were something sacred. Myra held her breath. She had heard about alien researchers visiting the colony, but she had never met one inside the greenhouse. For a moment, she thought of leaving quietly, but the figure turned and noticed her. Their eyes met. He did not speak at once. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as though trying to read her thoughts. Myra felt her cheeks warm, but she stepped forward, clutching the watering can in her hand. "You are studying the orchids?" she asked, her voice careful but soft. The alien nodded slowly, then spoke in a voice that was smooth and calm. "Yes. They are very beautiful. I wished to see them with my own eyes. My name is Aaron." His words carried a gentle rhythm, as if each sound was chosen with care. Myra relaxed a little. She placed the can down and walked closer. "I'm Myra. I take care of them every day," she said, brushing her hand lightly over a petal. "They are rare. Some bloom only once in many years." Aaron's eyes followed her hand. He leaned closer to the orchid, almost bowing to it. "Your care is clear. The plant answers with life." Myra blinked. No one had ever spoken of her work that way. To most people, she was simply a caretaker doing a small job. But this stranger, in only a few words, made her feel seen. For a while, they both stood in silence, listening to the soft drip of water from the pipes above. Aaron walked slowly down the row, his fingers never quite touching the plants but hovering near them, as though he could feel something unseen. Myra followed, watching with curiosity. "You speak to them," Aaron said after a while, his eyes still on the leaves. Myra felt a small laugh escape her. "Yes, I do. It may sound silly, but I feel they listen." Aaron turned toward her, and for the first time, Myra saw him smile. It was small, but it softened his face. "Not silly. My people believe all living things here in their own way. Maybe they understand more than we imagine." The words filled Myra with warmth. She had always thought her habit of speaking to plants was a secret she should keep. Yet here was someone who did not laugh at her, but agreed. They walked together until they reached the heart of the greenhouse. Sunlight streamed through the glass above, making the floor glow. Myra found herself speaking more freely, telling Aaron about the tiny tricks she used to help weak plants grow stronger. He listened closely, nodding, sometimes asking gentle questions. For the first time in many seasons, Myra felt she was not alone in her world of leaves and roots. Someone else cared not only about the plants but also about her thoughts. As they parted that morning, Myra glanced back. Aaron was still there, standing among the orchids, as if he belonged to the silence of the greenhouse. She carried the memory with her for the rest of the day, feeling something new growing inside her heart. Something as quiet and gentle as the first sprout pushing through the soil. The next morning, the greenhouse was filled with a soft golden light. The twin suns rose slowly above the colony, their rays slipping through the glass walls and warming the leaves inside. Myra carried her tools as usual, moving from one row to the next. But her mind was not calm like other mornings. She kept thinking of Aaron, the alien she had met the day before. Would he come again? Or was his visit only a passing moment? Myra tried to push the thought away, focusing on her work. She brushed dew from the petals of the sun lilies, checked the soil of the starfruits, and hummed softly while she worked. But the quiet air of the greenhouse felt different, as if waiting for something. And then she heard it, the low, gentle tone again. Like music without words. She turned and saw Aaron walking between the tall fern trees, his long steps graceful and unhurried. He carried no tools, only a small tablet in his hand. His calm eyes lifted when he saw her, and Myra felt a sudden warmth rush to her cheeks. "You are here again," she said, her voice lighter than she expected. "Yes," Aaron answered, his tone as calm as before. "The greenhouse is peaceful. I wish to return." Myra smiled softly. "It is my favorite place. I am glad you like it too." They began walking together through the rows of plants. At first, they spoke only of the flowers and vines. Myra showed him the small section where she grew herbs from earth. Their leaves carried gentle scents: mint, basil, rosemary. Aaron leaned closer, closing his eyes as if memorizing each fragrance. "In my world," he said slowly, "we do not grow herbs in soil. We grow them in streams of light. Their taste is different. But the way you grow them feels warmer." Myra tilted her head. "Streams of light." Aaron lifted his tablet and showed her an image. It looked like plants rising from beams of color, their roots glowing like crystal. Myra's eyes widened. "That is beautiful. But I think I would miss the smell of soil on my hands." Aaron looked at her with quiet curiosity. "You like the soil?" "Yes," Myra said with a soft laugh. "It is messy. It stains the nails. But it feels alive. When I touch the earth, I feel close to the plants." Aaron studied her for a moment, then nodded as if he understood. They continued their walk. Myra explained how she used small wooden sticks to guide the growth of climbing vines. Aaron, in return, showed her a method his people used: gentle patterns of light and sound to encourage plants to grow in shapes. Myra listened with wide eyes, fascinated. "You speak of them as friends," Aaron said quietly, watching her hands move with care. "They are," Myra answered simply. "I spend more time with them than with people." She stopped for a moment, then added, "Until now." The words escaped her before she could stop them. Myra's cheeks grew warm, but when she dared to look at Aaron, his expression was not mocking. He simply smiled, a small, gentle curve of lips. "I feel the same," he said. "Among the plants, I feel less alone. And now, I do not feel alone at all." The words lingered between them, soft as the breeze that rustled the leaves. Later, they sat near the water pond in the center of the greenhouse. The surface shimmered with reflected light, and small floating flowers opened their petals as if listening. Myra dipped her fingers into the cool water. Aaron watched the ripples with quiet eyes. "You said you talked to the plants," Aaron said after a pause. "What do you say to them?" Myra smiled shyly. "I tell them good morning. I tell them they are strong. Sometimes I tell them my worries too." Aaron looked thoughtful. "Then maybe that is why they grow so well. They grow with your heart." Myra felt her chest tighten in a way she could not explain. His words were simple, yet they touched her deeply. The suns were sinking when they finally parted. Myra walked back toward her quarters, her hands still carrying the scent of leaves. She knew she would dream of the greenhouse again, but not of plants this time. She would dream of a tall figure with calm eyes, and the quiet way he made her feel less alone. And as she lay down to rest, one thought stayed with her: tomorrow, she hoped Aaron would return. The greenhouse had become more than a place of work for Myra. Every morning she woke with a quiet excitement, wondering if Aaron would appear again. And most days, he did. Sometimes he came early, sometimes later, but always with the same calm step and curious eyes. For Myra, his presence felt as natural as sunlight slipping through glass. One evening, Myra stayed late. She had been waiting for a rare blossom to bloom, a golden starflower that only opened its petals once every 10 years. Its bud was almost ready, and she could not bring herself to leave. She sat on a wooden bench, her tools resting beside her, watching the green bulb with quiet patience. The greenhouse was silent except for the hum of the water pipes and the faint buzz of insects. Shadows stretched long across the floor as the twin suns sank low. Myra leaned forward, her hands folded together. "You are waiting too?" a gentle voice asked. She looked up quickly. Aaron was standing not far away, his pale skin catching the soft glow of the lamps. He walked closer, his tablet in hand, but his eyes fixed on the starflower. "You know about it?" Myra asked, surprised. "Yes," Aaron said with a small nod. "On my world, we have records of plants like this. But I have never seen one with my own eyes." Myra smiled, her heart lightening. "Then stay. We can watch it together." Aaron sat beside her, his long frame folding gracefully onto the bench. For a while, they said nothing, their attention on the bud. The greenhouse air felt warmer, filled with the soft scent of leaves and soil. To pass the time, Myra began to speak. She told Aaron stories of her childhood on Earth, how she would sit in her grandmother's garden, hiding under tall sunflowers and listening to bees. Her voice carried a quiet fondness, and Aaron listened without interrupting. His eyes softened, as if he could see the memory through her words. When she finished, he began to share. His childhood was different. On his world, children learned to sing to the young plants, their voices guiding the growth. He remembered standing with other children in wide gardens of light, his voice blending with theirs until the air itself seemed alive. Myra listened closely, enchanted by the picture he painted. "It sounds beautiful," she whispered. Aaron glanced at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "It was. But telling it now feels more beautiful." Myra looked away quickly, her cheeks warming, but she could not stop her own smile. Hours passed slowly, but they did not notice. Sometimes they laughed quietly at small jokes. Sometimes they sat in silence, the closeness between them needing no words. At last, near midnight, the starflower stirred. Its bud quivered, Then slowly, like a secret unfolding, the petals began to open. A golden glow spread out, soft but bright, filling the greenhouse with gentle light. Myra's breath caught in wonder. "It is more than I imagined," Aaron whispered, his voice low with awe. Myra nodded, unable to speak. The flower seemed alive with quiet magic, its glow reflecting in Aaron's eyes. For a moment, Myra forgot the world outside. It felt like only the three of them existed: her, Aaron, and the starflower blooming between them. Without thinking, Myra leaned closer to see the delicate veins of the petals. Aaron leaned too, and their shoulders brushed lightly. The touch was brief but enough to make her heart quicken. She pulled back slightly, but not too far. Aaron did not move away either. They stayed like that until the petals fully opened, shining like a star captured in glass. "It will stay open for only one night," Myra said softly. "By morning, it will close again." "Then tonight is a gift," Aaron replied. His words carried more than one meaning, and Myra felt her chest tighten in a sweet, strange way. She lowered her gaze, not trusting her voice. When dawn came and the glow of the starflower faded, Myra and Aaron were still there, sitting side by side. Both tired, both quiet, but filled with something they could not yet name. For Myra, it felt like the beginning of something rare, something blooming quietly inside her heart. The morning after the starflower bloom, the greenhouse felt brighter to Myra. She moved between rows of plants with a lighter step, her thoughts often drifting back to the night she had spent with Aaron. His quiet smile, his calm words, and the way he had looked at the glowing petals stayed with her like a gentle song. When she entered the orchid section, she found him already there. Aaron stood with his tablet, studying the vines that climbed along the glass walls. He looked focused, his pale fingers moving across the screen. "You came early today," Myra said with a cheerful smile. Aaron turned to her and nodded. "Yes. I wished to record an idea." Myra tilted her head. "An idea?" He gestured toward the orchids. "These plants grow slowly. But if we use patterns of light and sound like my people do, we could help them bloom faster. Their colors may even grow brighter." At first, Myra did not answer. She looked at the orchids, their green leaves shining in the morning light. She had cared for them for many seasons, touching every root, brushing every leaf. To her, their slow growth was part of their beauty. The thought of changing that stirred unease in her heart. "You mean, not with soil and water, but with machines?" she asked carefully. "Not machines," Aaron replied softly. "Light, harmony, rhythm. It is natural in its own way. I think the plants would respond." Myra's smile faded. She folded her arms, stepping back slightly. "They have grown this way for years. Why should we force them to change?" Aaron blinked, surprised by the sharpness in her voice. "It is not force. It is help. A gift from my world to yours." But Myra shook her head, her chest tightening. "You think my way is not enough? That what I do for them is not good?" Aaron's calm expression flickered. "No, that is not what I meant," but Myra was already turning away. Her hands trembled as she touched the edge of a leaf. She did not want him to see how much his words stung. For years, people had treated her work as small, unimportant. They saw her as only a caretaker, not a true grower. Now, even Aaron seemed to suggest the plants needed something beyond her care. The greenhouse, once warm with shared laughter, suddenly felt heavy with silence. Aaron stepped closer, his voice quiet. "Myra, I respect your way. I only wished to share mine. I thought, you might like it. But Myra did not look at him. I think I should finish my work now, she said softly, though her words carried a distance that hurt. Aaron stopped. His eyes lowered, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then, with a slow nod, he turned and walked away. Myra stood alone among the orchids, her heart aching. She tried to focus on her tasks, checking soil, misting leaves, but her thoughts kept circling back to his face when she pulled away. She had not wanted to hurt him, yet she had. That night, Myra lay awake in her small quarters. The greenhouse was silent without his presence. She told herself it was better this way, that perhaps she had been foolish to let someone so different come close to her heart. But another voice whispered inside her, "You misunderstood. He never meant to insult you." She buried her face in her pillow, torn between pride and regret. Meanwhile, Aaron sat in his own chamber on the colony's edge, staring at his notes. He erased the patterns of light he had drawn for the orchids. His chest felt heavy in a way he did not fully understand. He had hoped to share a part of his world with Myra, but instead he had created distance. Both of them longed for the warmth they had shared, yet neither knew how to reach for it again. And so, the glass greenhouse stood quiet in the days that followed, its leaves still green, its flowers still bright, but its heart missing the harmony that had begun to grow between two souls. The days that followed felt long for Myra. She still went to the greenhouse every morning, carrying her tools and moving through the rows of plants, but the air no longer felt the same. The quiet had returned, yet it was not the gentle silence she once loved. It was a silence heavy with absence. She missed Aaron. Each corner of the greenhouse reminded her of him, where he had stood to admire the orchids, where he had leaned close to smell the herbs, where they had sat together by the pond. She tried to push the memories away, but they returned again and again, tugging at her heart. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the glass walls, Myra lingered near the tall fern trees. She heard a soft sound, faint but familiar. It was not footsteps, nor the hum of machines. It was a tone, low and musical, rising and falling like a gentle song. Her breath caught. She followed the sound quietly until she reached the orchid section. There, hidden among the leaves, was Aaron. He was standing very still, his eyes half closed, his lips moving in a rhythm that carried the soft tone into the air. It was not words she could understand, but it felt like a lullaby sung to the plants. Myra froze, watching him. She realized at once what she had misunderstood. His way of helping the plants was not to replace her care, but to add something of his own, something born of respect and devotion. He was not saying her way was wrong. He was offering a piece of his world, a gift. Her chest tightened with regret. When the song ended, Aaron opened his eyes. He turned slightly and saw her standing there. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched, filled with things left unsaid. Finally, Myra stepped closer. "I heard you," she said softly. "The song, it was beautiful." Aaron lowered his gaze. "I did not mean to disturb you." "You didn't," Myra whispered. She hesitated, then added, "I thought you wanted to change everything I do. I thought you meant my way was not good enough. But I see now. I was wrong." Aaron lifted his eyes slowly. They shone faintly, like the last light of evening. "I never wished to take away your way, Myra. Your care is what makes this place alive. I only wished to share mine beside it." Myra felt her throat tighten. She reached out, brushing her fingers lightly over one orchid leaf. I should have listened. Instead, I pushed you away. Aaron watched her for a long moment, then shook his head gently. We both wish for the same thing, for the plants to grow, to bloom. That means there is no wall between us, only a bridge we must learn to walk together. His words eased the weight inside her chest. She let out a slow breath, then gave a small smile. Then, will you teach me? About your light and sound. A faint smile curved his lips. And will you teach me more about soil and touch? Myra nodded. Yes. We can learn together. For the first time in many days, warmth returned between them. They stood side by side, touching the orchids gently, speaking in quiet voices. Myra showed him how she tested the soil's dampness with her fingertips. Aaron hummed softly, explaining how the plants might respond to certain tones of sound. The greenhouse seemed to breathe again. Its leaves glistened in the fading sunlight, and the silence that had once felt heavy now felt gentle once more. When the night grew deep, Myra walked with Aaron toward the door. She felt lighter, as though a storm inside her heart had passed. Before parting, Aaron spoke softly. Thank you for coming tonight. I feared I had lost the harmony we found. Myra looked at him, her eyes steady. No, Aaron. The harmony is still here. We just needed to listen more carefully. As they stepped into the cool night air, both carried the same thought: their bond, like the plants they cared for, had roots now. And with patience, it would grow stronger. The days that followed carried a new rhythm inside the glass greenhouse. Myra and Aaron no longer worked apart, instead, they worked side by side. The plants seemed to sense the change, their leaves brighter, their colors deeper, as if they too felt the harmony growing between the two caretakers. Myra showed Aaron how to loosen the soil around the roots of the climbing vines, so the plants could breathe better. She guided his hands gently, her fingers brushing against his. Each small touch sent a quiet warmth through her, though she never spoke of it. Aaron, in return, shared the gentle tones of his people. He carried no instrument, only his voice. Sometimes it was a hum, sometimes a string of notes that rose and fell like flowing water. The plants seemed to lean toward the sound, their stems straightening, their buds trembling as if listening. Myra stood beside him, her heart beating a little faster each time she heard his song. One afternoon, Myra noticed a weak sprout struggling near the edge of the pond. Its leaves were pale, and its stem bent low. She knelt beside it with worry, brushing the soil gently. "This one may not survive," she whispered sadly. Aaron crouched beside her, his calm eyes studying the little plant. "Let us try together," he said. Myra watered the roots carefully, pressing the soil with her fingers. Aaron leaned close and began to hum, his voice low and steady, filling the quiet air. Myra felt the sound travel through the water, through the soil, through her own chest. For a moment, it was as if the whole greenhouse pulsed with the tone. When Aaron's voice faded, they both looked at the sprout. Its stem still bent, but Myra thought she saw its leaves lift just slightly. A fragile sign of hope. Her eyes brightened. "Maybe it will live." Aaron gave a small smile. "Because you cared, and because we cared together." Their gazes met, and for a long moment neither looked away. Something unspoken passed between them, soft as sunlight filtering through glass. As days turned into weeks, they found themselves sharing not only work but also quiet moments of closeness. Sometimes they sat by the pond after finishing their tasks, their reflections shining side by side in the water. Sometimes Myra told him old earth tales about gardens that stretched for miles, while Aaron shared stories of crystal forests on his world that glowed at night. Myra often laughed when Aaron tried to repeat the names of earth plants in her language. His careful voice turned Daisy into something longer, softer, almost like a song. Aaron, in return, chuckled gently when Myra attempted the names of his world's plants, her tongue stumbling over the sounds. But behind the laughter, there was always a quiet closeness. Their voices lingered, their smiles stayed longer than needed, and their silences grew comfortable. One evening, Myra returned late after helping in the colony fields. When she entered the greenhouse, she found it lit softly by small lamps. Aaron was already there, standing near the starflower's place. Though its bloom had closed weeks ago, he touched its leaves gently, almost reverently. "You waited for me," Myra said, surprised. Aaron turned, his eyes glowing faintly in the lamplight. "The greenhouse feels empty without you." The words struck her heart with a sudden warmth. She lowered her gaze, unable to hide her smile. "It feels the same for me." They walked together, checking the plants in silence. Yet each step felt charged with something deeper than words. At the pond, they paused, watching the floating flowers open under the lamps. Myra leaned closer to see their tiny golden centers. Without thinking, Aaron reached out, steadying her with a hand near her shoulder. The touch was brief, gentle, but enough to make Myra's heart race. She looked up at him, and for a moment, the whole greenhouse seemed to fade around them. But neither spoke of what they felt. Instead, Myra straightened, her voice soft. "The flowers look brighter tonight." "Yes," Aaron said quietly. His eyes stayed on her a little longer than on the blooms. As they parted that evening, Myra carried the memory of his touch with her. It was small, almost nothing, yet it lingered like a seed planted deep inside her chest. And like every seed, she knew it was only a matter of time before it began to grow. The greenhouse glowed softly as the twin suns set, their light spilling through the glass walls. The leaves shimmered in gentle shades of green and gold, and the air was warm with the scent of flowers and earth. Myra walked slowly along the rows, carrying her watering can, but she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Today, Aaron would meet her at the center of the greenhouse, near the pond where they often shared quiet moments. When she arrived, Aaron was already there. He stood beside a small bench, looking out at the plants as if he could see their hearts. When he saw Myra, a gentle smile lit his face, softening the sharp lines of his features. "Good evening," she said, her voice quiet but warm. "Good evening," he replied. "The greenhouse feels brighter when you are here." Myra's chest fluttered, a small heat rising to her cheeks. She stepped closer, brushing a stray leaf from her shoulder. "It always feels brighter when you are here too." They walked slowly toward the pond, the soft glow of lamps reflecting in the water. Floating flowers opened their petals, their golden centers shimmering, as if celebrating the quiet moment. Myra knelt beside the water, her fingers tracing gentle ripples on the surface. Aaron crouched beside her, his hand near hers but not touching yet. For a long moment, they watched the reflection of the greenhouse above them. Myra's reflection shimmered in the water, and beside her, Aaron's face seemed to glow with the light of the plants. She felt a warmth she could no longer deny, the same warmth that had been growing quietly in her chest for weeks. "Do you remember the starflower?" Myra asked softly. "The one that bloomed once in 10 years. Aaron nodded, his eyes on her. "Yes. I will never forget it. The night we watched it bloom, it felt like the beginning of something." Myra turned to him, her gaze steady. It was the beginning. And I feel the same now. Aaron's calm eyes softened, and he finally reached out, his hand brushing hers lightly. Myra felt a thrill run through her, and she did not pull away. The touch was small, almost hesitant, but it carried all the words they had never spoken. I like being with you, Myra, Aaron said, his voice low and careful. More than I ever expected. Myra's heart leapt. She let her fingers rest over his, their hands warmed together. I like being with you too, Aaron. You make the greenhouse, the world, feel brighter. A quiet laugh escaped him, soft and full of relief. I think, the plants are happier too, aren't they? Myra smiled, looking around at the rows of leaves, the gentle flowers, the small pond where their reflections met. Yes. But not as happy as us, she whispered. The air between them seemed to glow. For the first time, they did not need words to express the feelings that had grown quietly for weeks. Every glance, every gentle touch, every shared moment had built something strong and fragile all at once. Aaron leaned closer, their faces now just inches apart. Myra felt her pulse quicken. The warmth between them was no longer just a secret, it was something real, something they could no longer ignore. Shall we bloom together? He asked softly, a quiet question that mirrored everything she felt. Myra nodded, her lips curving into a gentle smile. Yes. Together. And there, in the heart of the glass greenhouse, surrounded by plants that had witnessed their journey, they shared a soft, tender moment. It was not hurried, not forced, but slow and gentle, like a flower opening its petals to sunlight. The greenhouse seemed to sigh in contentment, leaves brushing softly against each other. Outside, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow. Inside, two hearts had finally found their rhythm, beating quietly together like the harmony of the plants around them. That night, Myra and Aaron sat by the pond, hands intertwined, watching the floating flowers glow softly. The greenhouse was alive not only with plants, but with love, patience, and understanding. A bond had been planted and carefully nurtured, and now it would grow, strong and lasting, like the rarest bloom in the galaxy. And so, the glass greenhouse stood as a sanctuary, not just for the plants, but for the hearts that had learned to grow together.